If you're preparing for roles like AI engineer, data scientist, machine learning engineer, or solutions architect, this project right here is going to be the best thing on your resume. Today, we are building a complete end-to-end AI insurance claims agent on Azure AI Foundry. No theory, no slides, just pure code, architecture, and a production-ready system built from scratch. And by the time we wrap up, you will have an AI agent that can search documents, run calculations, browse the web, and deploys as a live web application. And this is exactly the kind of project recruiters actually notice because most developers haven't built something like this, and that's your edge. And also stay till the end for a surprise. All right, let's get started.
How can we use Microsoft Foundry, okay, to be able to solve end-to-end real-time problem? So suppose we want to go ahead and create a AI, we can say, system which is going to process the claims smartly. So we are looking to create an AI insurance claims agent using Microsoft Foundry. Okay, and this is where we will try to go ahead and understand the aspect. And to help you understand this, let me just take you through a very important thing, which is you can say more of an architecture that I can just go ahead and show you. So just keep it simple. Suppose you have an application that is deployed. So if you can see it here itself. So we are going to have an application, okay, which is going to be deployed on app service or maybe front end, okay. And we are going to deploy an application. Once we deploy that application, we are going to interact with that application using Azure AI Foundry. Now, when we are saying Microsoft Foundry, Azure AI Foundry, it is using a LLM and an agent to be able to go ahead and give the response back to the application. So we are going to interact. Okay, we are going to query. Okay, the query that we are going to go ahead and pass, or maybe the interactions that we are going to have, will be with this application. This application can have some functions. Okay, and we can call that those functions as, maybe we can call it as, there are some functions which are going to look into claims, which are going to look whether this is a fraudulent case or not. So we are going to go ahead and do this kind of a scenario. Okay. So that is what we are trying to make sense. And in regard to this, if you see, we will have a user who's going to ask a question. Okay. And that is going to go ahead and you can say interact. The user is going to interact with the web application. The data, okay, based on which the question is going to be answered will be there, maybe in a vector store. Okay. There can be some data wherein we want to analyze some information. There can be some data wherein we want to go ahead and you can say do a web search. So just to keep it simple, the user question can be fetching the information from the vector. It can be to go ahead and draw some visuals or maybe do some calculation. Okay. Analyze the information that the user is looking for and do calculation on top of it. It can also be going ahead and doing a web search. Okay. It can also be doing a web search, right? So here you can see we are making use of document RAG. We are making use of code interpreter as well as we are making use of web search. To be able to fulfill all these three things, we are going to interact with an agent. Okay. So we are going to go ahead and interact with an agent, which is going to call the LLM and the required tools it is going to go ahead and call. Okay, it is going to go ahead and call the required tools to be able to go ahead and give the response back to the user. Okay. So the process is pretty simple. As a user, you are going to go ahead and interact, and based on the question, it is going to route through the correct tool and give your response back. This is what we are expecting. Though this diagram is a little, you can say, more fabricated using AI, but let me just keep it simple and let me explain you the end-to-end process right now. Okay. So what I'm trying to say, we have a user. User is going to ask a question. The moment user asks the question, okay, there is an agent. Agent is going to go ahead and agent has access to LLM. Okay, agent has access to tools. Okay, now when I'm saying tools, we have a vector search, vector database. Okay, we also have you can say what do we call it? Code interpreter. I'll tell you. I hope you are aware what is code interpreter. And then we also have something called as web search. So these are the three different tools. I'm putting everything into tool. So we have a vector database, we have a code interpreter, and we have a web search. Now I'll explain you a simple thing. Okay. Uh, okay. So I'll put it this way. First, suppose I have a document, okay, wherein I have got, suppose, salesperson name. I want you all to please interact with me in this regard. So I've got person name and I have got sales, maximum sales. Okay, the person has done in a quarter. So suppose the first person name is Jalal, then we have Ritesh, then we have maybe you can say Sakshi. Okay, I'm just giving some name, and then there is one more person, suppose Munir. Okay, I'm talking about this purpose. Now suppose Jalal has made a sales of 23K. This person has made a sales of 20K. Sakshi has made a sales of 43K, and Munir has made a sales of suppose 4K only. Okay. Now suppose if I go ahead and say draw a bar chart. What I'm trying to say, user says, okay, give me a bar chart, okay, for people, or I'll put it this way, tell me the average sale. Now tell me, when I say tell me the average sale, what are we looking to do? Are we looking to do some arithmetic operation or not? We are looking to do arithmetic operation, right? In this case, in this kind of scenario where we are trying to go ahead and do some query on top of our data, this is what we call query on top of our data. Try to make sense. So when we try to go ahead and run a query on top of our data, that time we make use of something called as code interpreter. Remember, for this kind of data or for this kind of query, I'll not say this kind of data, for this kind of information fetching, you will go ahead and make use of code interpreter. In the code interpreter, the data is when code interpreter runs, I'll put it again, the data for code interpreter task is never going to be, I'm saying never going to be a vector. Remember this. Okay. And what is the code interpreter? This is actually a data analysis tool. It's like a Python tool which can run Python functions. Simple. It's an inbuilt. Now that doesn't mean we can't create. We can also create this kind of thing, but this comes out of the box from the Foundry side. Now I'll tell you why is this very much easy and important for us to make sense. So let me just take you back to the same thing. Now if I say, now try to understand. If I say who did maximum sales? Who did maximum sales? Can anyone tell me? Sakshi. Now how are you able to understand? Because you are able to relate this number and you know that the number is associated to Sakshi. Simple, right? In this kind of scenario, suppose if you would have created this into a vector form, if you would have created it into a vector form, this itself is a number, correct? This itself is a number. I hope everyone agrees. So if this is itself a number, you cannot convert number into another number. That will not make any sense. That is what I'm trying to say. When you have number kind of a data, again I'll repeat, when you have number kind of a data, then it is, and you want to go ahead and run a query on top of it, then it is, and you want to run a query like a SQL query on top of it, then you will go for a data analysis kind of a tool, which is called as a code interpreter. Okay. Another question that I have, now I'll put it this way. Suppose for the sales, we have got some you can say sales catalog or maybe performance catalog we have got. Okay. Performance benchmark catalog we have got some. I'm trying to make sense out of you. So when this kind of a scenario is there, wherein we may have some numbers, but the main purpose of this is to ask a question. Okay. Ask a question. When the user asks a question, fetch the relevant information from text. Fetch the relevant information from the text file. Okay. Or text-based text file you can say. Any kind of format it can be. But we are saying fetch the relevant information. So just to keep it simple, how to be the best salesperson. Now for this, will I go here or will I look into the attributes that Sakshi was having or maybe Jalal or Ritesh was having, which is being used locked down there. What do you think? Go to the document. In that case, this kind of thing should be vectorized. Again, I'll put it this way. This is again specific. You can't vectorize everything. You can't put everything into code interpreter. You at your own organization or maybe at your own project level know what am I expecting, okay, from this document, okay? What am I expecting the user to query from the document? The same document can also be part of a code interpreter as well as a vector database also. That's up to you. But try to distinguish the fact that vector database is going to help you retrieve the information in the form of a text. Code interpreter, though it is going to give you the information in the form of a text, because generative AI LLM is going to be taking the information that will be outputted from the tool and present to you in a natural language. But the purpose of both are different. This is going to go ahead and do some calculation and then return the result to LLM. And vector database is going to go ahead and fetch some information and then return the result to the LLM. Similarly, we can have a web search. So what is there in this GitHub? Okay, first thing is there is a whole architecture that we have in place. This is the final architecture when we are going to deploy the application on a web application. This is how the architecture will be like. Okay, I'll explain you this aspect. Before that, let us just understand the node by one. So I'm going to show you. See, I've got something called as labs, lab explanation, and lab notebook. I'll take you through all of this one by one. And then there is also something called as output. And then there is something called as utils. Let me delete this. Okay, I'll explain you what is there in each of this. And then there is something called as data. And then there is something called as lab. I'll explain you one by one. In this folder, you are going to have explanation of each lab. Okay, simple flow diagram is there. Flow diagram of each lab. And why are we learning all this lab? Because this will clear all the concepts of you with respect to Foundry, what are things are possible. Okay, I'll explain. So flow diagram of each, you can say lab that will finally constitute for the entire project. So we'll look into flow diagram for each lab. This is part of this lab explanation. After that, we have got two folder. One is lab and another is lab notebook. Labs has got Python script. Lab notebook has got Jupyter notebook script. It has not got Python script. It is more like cell-based coding. So you can either go with labs or you can go with labs notebook. I would prefer to go with lab notebook because it's easy and intuitive. Okay. This is where you can save some outputs. Okay. There are some outputs, especially related to rendering charts, because rendering charts, okay, and visuals are not possible directly via the Foundry. Okay. So if you want to render the charts, you need to save the charts, especially via the code interpreter. If you are building some charts, okay, so you cannot render the charts directly in console. So you need to save the chart and then you can open the chart. You cannot directly render the chart. Again, I'll repeat, in the console itself, because console CLI does not provide you rendering capability, right? So in that case, you can save the save the code interpreter output, and then you can open that thing. Code interpreter output, I think. Okay. This is another thing. Now, one more thing that I would like to highlight. If you go through this, here you can see we have got lab 0 to lab 12. First is about just setting up the connection. Second is getting a response. First is set up the connection. Second is get the response. Just a simple response. What is an agent and how does it respond? Third is we could have taken the data. I could have easily skipped this and told this is my data, but I wanted to show you that we can generate the data. So this is a script which is going to generate the data. So first we will set up the connection. Then we will call that, you can say we will create an agent, a simple agent that is going to give us a result back. Then we are going to run a simple script which is going to generate data. And that data we are going to store it here. Okay, so we could have easily skipped this pre-lab. It was not at all required also. But just to understand, these all things are there. Then we are going to go ahead and do a file search. If you remember file search, this is related to vector data. Then we will go ahead and use code interpreter. This is related to anyone? This is related to code interpreter. Then if you want to create your own functions, if you remember, if you want to call a SQL database, so you need to create your own function. So you can create your own function. What if you want to invoke multiple tools like a file search, code interpreter together you want to invoke? So how can you have multiple tools within one Foundry agent? Then how can you include a web search? Okay. And then how to make your lab production ready? We will look into this. Okay. Finally, if you want to get structured output, okay, if you want to stream the output, okay. And finally, rather than using a file search, there is also something called as Azure AI search for enterprise level vector database. You can go for Azure AI search also. And finally, you will see that we will have a web application that we can see. Okay, so this will be a web application. When you will go through this script, it is actually going to go ahead and help you create this kind of a thing. So this output of this is all being kept inside this. This is our main final application. What you can see here is our main final application. Okay, wherein we have a index page, we have a script, and we have a, you can say, a fast API that has been created. I'll show you all those aspects. All right. So rather than going through this, I can go through the notebook. Apart from that, I have created something called as utils. Okay. Now, what is utils? Many a times we want to go ahead and call multiple things. I'll put it this way. Okay. So there are some, I'll explain. There are some, you can say, you can put it this way. There are some configurable information like I want to load the env file. I want to load path. I want to load Azure credential. Okay, I want to load client. So there are many things that I want to go ahead and import. So rather than importing it again and again, we can have a utils file wherein we can directly call this function. I'll explain you. See, if I come up here, if you see, I have created a clear definition of what is project root variable. Project root variable is going to go ahead and load the environment. If you can see, project root we have defined and we have to load the environment variable, which is there in the root folder. If you see, environment variable is in the root folder. This all are folders. Environment variable is in the root folder. So we have just told that whenever we want to load the environment, we are going to make use of project root. Okay, sorry, we are going to make use of this function, which is automatically going to automatically invoke the root folder. Again, you can write all these things in the lab itself. But if you want to simplify the things, you can create functions. Just to show you, here we are saying endpoint is equal to this. So we are automatically saying that to get the endpoint, you need to go to the env file and get the project endpoint from here. So if I click here, can you see project endpoint is already here? So when we say to get the endpoint, I think where was I? Oh, yeah, in the util. So if I say to get the endpoint, where do we need to go? We need to go to the environment. So whenever we want to call it anywhere within our script, we are going to import this. How to import, I'll explain you. We need to just go ahead and say from config.py, import whatever is there. What is this endpoint? This is a variable, right? If it would have been a function, we would have told from config.py. Understand what I'm saying? From config.py, import. If this is the function, which is going to give me the client information, maybe connection information, I can directly say from config.py, import get done. What is this going to go ahead and do? This is automatically, if you see, this is the definition. It is going to go ahead and return the project client, which is using the endpoint and the default Azure credential. And this is also going to return OpenAI client, which is going to give me a connection. So first it will give me the project and then it will automatically return me the OpenAI client. Okay, so what I'm trying to help you understand, this function is a helper function. What do we call? We call this as helper. So you can keep it under any folder by any name, but see to it that you call it as a helper function. Similarly, I've got some function when you want to print any information, I'm going to use this. For lab number, just to show you, for lab number, lab name, I have just put some information. When you want to print step, this is how it should be formatted. So what I'm saying, dash, 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 dash should come. Okay. 50 times dash should come. Then it should print the step text. There is some step text that will be printed. And then again, it should print 50 times. So these are some ways of printing the things in a formatted way. If you do not want to print, that's up to you. Okay. So just to show you, okay, there are multiple helper functions that are part of it to keep it simple. Okay. I'll explain you whenever it comes. Right now, what I want you to understand is what do we have in here? We have lab explanations here. We have lab in Python here. We have lab in Jupyter extension format, which is PYNB here. And then if there is any output, we will have here. These are some helper functions that we are going to call it out within our code. Okay. And then we have got something called as PNB file, which is all okay. I told you we have got some data which you can create. Okay. And this is the final application that is going to run once you understand the entire notebook. All right. You can run this on Google Colab also. That should not be a problem. It should be okay. Okay. Now let me show you. I have got the information in a markdown format you can read. Or to keep it simple, I have used AI to create this in a readable format. So let us just see what is there inside the first thing. So I hope you all can see. So let me just put it this way. All right. Yeah. So what I'm trying to explain, this first thing is we are going to load the environment. We are going to create a project. There is a class in Foundry which helps you connect to your Foundry project. The name of the class is AI Project Client. So we are going to load the environment file, give it to AI Project Client, and then we are going to test the prompt. Okay, that is what we will see. So just to keep it simple, I told we will have an endpoint and the model in environment file. We are going to get it from the config.py. You can directly pass it here. That's absolutely fine. So I'm going to go ahead and call a function from config.py, which is get clients. This function is going to give me an access to two functions. This function is going to give me access to project client and get OpenAI client. If you want to see it here, let me just explain you in a simple way. If I go to this utils, if you see, if I come up here, clearly we have written get client. If you see, this get client function is going to give me an access to two variables, project client and OpenAI. Project client is connecting to my Foundry project, okay, via this class. And this Foundry project has got a method get OpenAI. Okay. This class has got a method get OpenAI client. That means it will give me an access to Azure OpenAI. Is that okay? So I'll put it this way. The moment I want to connect to the agent, what do I require? I require to connect to Foundry project. People who are new, do not worry. I'm just putting it this way. The moment I want to connect to the agent, where is the agent right now? Azure Foundry, right? So if I want to connect to the agent, first I'll connect to Foundry. Within the Foundry, I'll call OpenAI. Okay, and then I am going to go ahead and use agent class, which we will see to be able to connect to the agent. So right now I'm just doing two things. I'm getting access to project and I'm getting access to Azure OpenAI. That's it. Get OpenAI client. This is what we have. Okay. Now we'll look into this. Okay. Now if I come up here, let me just explain you again. So I told we will get endpoint and model. Then we are going to, once we have the endpoint and model, we will use that endpoint and model and look into get client function. Okay, which is going to give us connection to project client and get OpenAI client, which is going to give us an access to GPT-4o Mini and a Foundry project. Simple. Which is part of a Foundry project. This is what we are doing, trying to do in the first lab. Now, in the first lab, are we creating any agent? Tell me. Anyone? Are we creating any agent? Or are we just creating a connection? So the point is pretty simple. Now, the point is, I'll do one thing. I'll come up here. Let me go to our thing and let me go to Foundry in front of you. We'll go to Microsoft Foundry. Here I'm going to create a Foundry resource. Let me give a name as maybe K21RG as a resource book. Let me give a logical name as Foundry claims. Okay, I'm just giving it a name, resource name. Then I'll not use these two because I have seen that this server is very highly utilized, okay, for multiple things. Because of whatever is happening in the Gulf, you will see that this server is highly utilized. So I would recommend to use any other server, especially do not use Gulf or server of Eastern, because I've seen this is highly used. Now let me just say project claims. I'm just giving it a unique name, which makes sense. Everything looks to be okay. Let me hit on review plus create. We can connect other things also. Right now, I'll just create a Foundry resource. When I'm going to create a Foundry resource, it will give me a resource group with the name of the resource and the name of the project. Let me hit on create. Now, when I'm going to create this Foundry, how will it be different from this one? You will automatically be able to see. Okay, so if I come to that same thing, let me go to portal. Sticking to the Foundry portal, not the Foundry project, remember. Okay. Here you can see we only have Azure OpenAI and Azure AI services already blank. Okay. Now let this get created. We can go slow. We have time, so we should not be in a hurry. That's absolutely fine. And let us understand the entire Foundry to be able to make sense out of the overall output that we are going to achieve through that, through the lab or through the project. I should not say lab. I'm really sorry. Okay. So let me go to Foundry Claims resource. Let me open the Foundry portal. Now, the moment I open the Foundry portal, here you can see, if you see here, here we have Foundry project endpoint also, which was not the case when we were here. Apart from that, we also have Azure AI service. We also have Azure OpenAI. So we get all the endpoints right now. To connect, to connect, we are going to use the Foundry project endpoint. That is what we are going to go ahead and do. The moment we connect to this expects us to have a model. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go to deploy base model. And there are around 170 plus LLMs that are available. Not just Azure OpenAI, you can connect to any other LLM also. Okay, there are many that are available. You can connect. Okay, so if you want, I can just see if you have Claude. Can we check for Claude 4.6 if it is available? I don't think so. Let us just see. We need to select the industry. Let me just select and click on agree and proceed. The issue is in my location, there are no locations with enough quota to deploy this model. You can try selecting different. So I'll just keep it aside. You can check for a production environment to have this thing in place. Right now, to save the cost, let me use a GPT-4o Mini, which is an industry benchmark model when it comes to low token usage. So I'll go with that. Let me hit on this. And here I can customize if I want to reduce the number of token, increase the number of token. I can do that. Content filter, I think we are already seeing. Let me hit on create. Content filter, basically trafficking content, sexual content. You want to have a filter, you can have. So now I have got a model and I have got a agent, everything in place. Okay, so if I come up here, I do have this thing. So what do I require as your subscription Foundry project? AZ login .env file I need to configure. So I'll come up here and in the .env, let me just come to the project again. I'll go to overview. Let me copy the Foundry project because this is what is required. If you see project endpoint is required. So let me paste the project. Then GPT-4o Mini is okay. And I'll talk about Tevely Q. So this is what we have here. So I'll come to the first lab. And I think we have this ENV with project endpoint and deployment. What are the classes that we are going to use? I told to connect to the Foundry project, we are going to make use of AI project client. And then you can see auth to log in. See, only project endpoint will not be sufficient. To say that you are going to access, you need to do Azure authentication, which is AZ login. Okay. And then once you have that, you can call the model using responses.create, which we are going to see going forward. Now, what I'm going to do, let me close this out. Let me keep this thing simple. Let me come to, I'll close this, okay, for simplicity. Let me open the first lab and let us just see what do we have in this lab. So you can read through this if you want. I have already, one more thing, I have already created an environment. Now, I hope you all know how to create an environment. Let me go to the terminal. People who are new, try to make sense. I can just say Python. I want to create a separate environment so that any packages that I'm going to install, I want to have, you can say conflict should be avoided. So I can just create an environment. You can just use this command to create an environment. It's all there in your project guide. You can check that out. So I'm right now creating, this is the command, Python -mvenv, and then give a name to the environment. I have given the same name. You can give any name to create an environment. Once this environment is created, now you need to open that environment. So you can say venv. If you see, I have got venv here. Within this, there is something called a script. I'll open the script. Within the script, I can use activate.ps1 or activate. I can use any. So I can use activate or activate.ps1 to activate the environment. Now, once this environment is activated, okay, once this environment is activated, I want to run all this. You can say, I want to run all this, what you can say, packages. I want to have Azure AI project, Azure Identity, OpenAI, Python.env, and then some observability tools. We will talk about it, fast API, everything we have it. Okay. So what I'm trying to do is to run this, to create a separate environment, I can just say pip install -r requirements.txt. The moment I do this, it will collect all the packages that are part of it and install it. At any point of time, you want to have more packages, you can again configure the environment by adding a new requirement here and then running the requirement.txt on top of it. All right. Let this get installed. I'll wait for some time and then we'll take it ahead. Now this is all done. I have installed. This was only required. I've just installed that also. Upgrade if required, we can do that. So this is almost done. Now I close this. You know why? Because if I go to this environment, you need to take it from here. So this was already existing. Let me close this notebook. I'll tell you why. Because I've just created another environment, right? So let me open this in the notebook. So when you want to run this, it will try to detect the kernel, which was already existing. If it is not able to find that, you need to click on select kernel because in the notebook, you are going to select the environment from here. And if you remember, this is the environment that I created, which is part of this folder itself. venv script python.exe. That. So I've selected the environment. Okay. Now the first thing, if you see, it's clearly saying do AZ login. But it's saying, see to it that you are already logged into Azure. So how will you log into Azure? Come here. Anywhere you can come. Okay. Just do AZ login. When you do AZ login, I'll just, it's automatically activating the environment. Let me do AZ login and let me say use device code. Sometimes it gives me error. So let me just use this device code thing. So this is the code I'll copy. You need to have this logged in. I'll come up here. I'll enter the device code. Click on next. Give the permission to this account. It's saying it is trying to access your account via CLI. I'll say yes. It's all done. Now here you can see it is trying to retrieve the subscription. Now here you can see I've got multiple subscription. Which subscription do you want to use? I'll just say this third one. Okay. So I can use this subscription. And since I'm already on the third, I can keep a chain if you want. We need to press 1, 2, 3, right? So right now for default, I need to enter the number. So right now, since it is already same, I can just say enter. So here you can see output has been updated. That means this is done. So I've already logged in. I'll close this. This is all fine. I've already installed, got the endpoint, everything in place. So I need to test the connection. If you see, from utils.config, the moment try to make sense, you could have written the entire thing here. This is the variable which will load the model. This is the variable which will load the endpoint. So I'm just importing some information that way. Now, the moment I need to import in this environment, I need to have Jupyter kernel package. So since this was not installed, I will install it right away. Because this environment is going to run a Jupyter notebook. So I need to install a Jupyter notebook also. I could have directly written here, to be very honest. For Jupyter, we can just type, I guess, Jupyter. Can you see? This is also fine. Yeah, this is fine. Jupyter MD should be good enough. Okay, so if you want, you could have updated that also. That would have been absolutely. If you would have done that at the time of requirement.txt, then it would not have asked you to do the IPyKernel package installation. That's the only thing. This is almost done. It's time to connect to the kernel. It's done now. Can you see? So it will try to connect to the kernel. So I've got that package installed. Just give it some time. Done. So I'll just clear all output. Let me run it again. And here you can see it is saying I'm able to import get client. I'm able to import model endpoint print header. Now, if you're interested, let me just go to utils and let me open this config.py here in the, you can say in the notepad just to show you. So if I can just increase the font, if I go down here, you can see what have we imported. What did we import? Get client, right? Sorry, I made a spelling mistake here. You see? So if I show you, this is the get client, which is going to import the client code. That's it. Okay. Let me just come up here. Okay. Now here, if you see, I'm just going to call those variables. If you see, I've already imported this, right? So if you want to only output the first 60, not required. So just put everything, that's fine. I want to get the endpoint and the model. Do we have endpoint here? If I copy this, I'm just explaining you guys. Nothing is coming from alien place. Okay? If I run this, can you see endpoint? I hope you can see. Everyone? Similarly model. So we are actually calling this from utils.config, if you remember. From utils folder, there is a sub file which is config. So in this folder, there is a config file from where I'm importing this to constant print header as well as the get client function. So if I run this, you will see I'm able to load everything. Okay. Actually, just say that please get the current working directory. If you are not in the current working directory is this one, right? So it is actually going to go ahead and just get into the current working directory to be able to run the process. That's it. Again, you can eliminate all this. That's absolutely fine. The purpose is for us to understand. Okay. Now, if I click on get client, now you will remember project client and OpenAI client. It has two functions. Okay. So if you remember get clients, if I copy this, if I come up here, again, remember the process, guys. Again, I'm explaining you the entire process. Try to make sense. So if you go to get client function, it has got project client and OpenAI client. So I'm saying comma, okay, and I'm saying get client. The moment I run this, it will automatically say that these two things are there, okay, because I've already been, if this is, that this means this is working absolutely fine. Now I'm going to go ahead and use this OpenAI client, which connects to project client, right? So here I am saying response. You get the response from OpenAI model. So how to get a response from OpenAI client? If you come up here, this OpenAI client is this one. Okay. So if you see OpenAI client is connecting to my Azure Foundry project, which has the access to the endpoint. Okay. So right now, if I come up here, the moment I'll run here, I am passing the model. Okay. And I am saying, you could have passed anything. I'm saying reply with exactly the same. I could remove this and I can say, I'll remove this. How to pass Claudia's interview. Let me just try this out. You can see I've got the response. Now, rather than I want a strict response, just to keep it simple, okay, because this was not our aim. So I'm saying reply with exactly. Input is claims, connections, successful, chalal. This is what I'm going to say. So if I run this, It is again going to the LLM, but LLM is saying just reply to this. Just to help you understand that the LLM is working absolutely. So now what are we able to process? We are able to see environment variables are being loaded. AI project client has been loaded. OpenAI model has been loaded and the model is able to respond. Where is my explanation here? So I'll close this. This is almost completed. Okay, now let me just go through another visual, which is Hello Agent. Before that, just give me a minute. The second one, which is Hello Agent, and let me just explain you what is happening here. Okay. Now, this is where we are trying to make sense how to, like your first agent, right? Create an agent with custom instruction, single turn and multi-turn conversation. And explain you what is the difference between both of them. So first of all, agent, first of all, we have, this is all you need to see. This is pretty nicely created. So a little bit of here and there, but you will be able to make sense. So there is a class from agent definition, which helps you connect to the model, and you can pass your instruction like system, user, assistant. If you want to pass, you can pass via this class from agent definition. Okay. So this is just going to, this class is going to allow you to understand. See, agent requires model or not? All right. So if agent requires model, this is the way you need to connect an agent to access that model. What is the way? You need to use prompt agent definition to connect model and instruction. Then you are going to create an agent, okay, using create underscore version. Okay, this is going to register the agent with that model and instruction. Okay, if you want to have a conversation, you can make use of conversation.create. If you want to have state, like you can say, what you can say, send plus receive. If you want to have stateful conversation, or maybe if you want to have send and receive kind of a thing, I'll explain you that, then you can make use of response.create. We'll look into what is this conversation. This is called as the responses. I'll put it this way. This is single turn conversation. This one. This is multi-turn conversation. That means this will keep your history enabled. If you use this conversation, we will see what is there. If you use responses, this will be send and receive. That's it. Input and output, single term conversation. Can you see? Yeah, here we have single term conversation, response.create. Multi-turn conversation, conversations.create. Stateful conversation. So the first thing is how to create an agent. I told you need to use this class. It is going to go ahead and help you register an agent using this option. And that agent will be available in the Foundry. Okay, whatever name you're going to give, that agent will be automatically available in the Foundry. That agent, you're going to pass a message of a user. User will pass a message. Right now, we are not connecting any data. We are just asking directly. So when we are asking directly, from where it is getting the response? When I'm asking an agent a question and there is no tool attached, no database attached, from where it will give me the response? LLM. Simple. So if I say what does auto insurance cover, it will give an response on its own. Okay. Using an LLM directly. Secondly, I'll say file a claim. It will give a response. Then I'll say what documents needed. Now, in the second one, I am not saying documents needed for file claim. So if I say file a claim, it will say some information, how to file a claim. And then if I say what documents needed, it will automatically understand. The person is asking the documents needed to file a claim. This is called as context aware. So just to keep it simple, if I come up here, this is what we have here right now. So let us just look into, you can go through this. I'll keep this up separate. Let me open this and let us just understand the process in a simple way. Now, if you see, there is some print header, print step, just for, you can say more beauty, okay? That you can say more headers, and if you want to have those things, you can have this. This is not required. Again, if you want to remove, you can absolutely remove. Here I am using that get client. And right now I'm just going to use get client and model. And if you see from AI project model, I am calling this from agent definition, which is going to give me a handle to the agent to create an agent. So first of all, let me select the kernel. Let me select the environment. And let me create a connection. So right now I've imported something. Now I'm just going to say get clients. Now we know within get clients, everything is ready. Okay. Because we have already checked that out. Now, if you see, once I have this project client and OpenAI client, now I am going to use project client to create an agent. And this is how you create an agent. Agents dot create version, if you remember. So if you remember, this is where I have got the project client. Now I am going to use that project client. And if you see, it is using which class? From agent definition. It expects the model. And if you have an instruction, you can pass the instruction. Okay, so again, remember what is happening here. We are saying, hey, in this project, please create an agent. The moment you say, I want to create an agent, it will say, tell me the name of the agent. I'll say smart claims seller. Then you can give any name. Then he's saying how to know that we need to create an agent. What will be there in the agent? I am going to say using prompt agent definition. The agent is going to have model and instruction. It could have also got tools. If I can go here, we could have added tools also if you see. Right now there are no tools, right? So we could have added tools also here itself. That's absolutely fine. But right now we are adding model instruction. Once this is done, I'm just going to use this agent. It has methods. Okay, now this project client has methods like name of the agent. It will output this version. It will say version number 1 because I'm registering it for the first. So the moment I run this, it will give me the version. Okay, so here you can see I've got a model version. Sorry, agent and the version. Okay, now let me just go down. Now I want to send a single request. To send a request, to create an agent, we use project client, right? To send a request, we are going to make use of OpenAI client and the method is response.create. What it expects, you can put some information. This is again the agent reference. You need to provide this. In which agent you are going to use it, I'm just specifying agent reference, agent name. This is extra body. Even if you would not have used, that would have been okay. Because this is just the information. Agent reference, agent version, okay? And then we are saying type is, we are just saying agent reference. It's an extra body that you want to attach. You can attach. Okay, you could have directly used, that would have been okay. Now here, if you see, I'll again repeat, let us just consider it to be the actual information. So I'm here saying that use that agent name and version. The moment I say agent name and version, what is this agent having? It is having a model instruction. And it could have got what, apart from model instruction, what we could have been able to attach? Tell me. Tools. Right now, we are not attaching. So the moment we say this, understand, we are saying this responses dot create. The moment we are making use of this information, okay, which is, if I go down, here you can see, I ask the question. See, this is the thing. I have just defined the information. And here, this is the final thing. Okay. Everything is there inside this only. So under this, you can see if I start from here, this is where the things have come. I would recommend to use this bracket here. Makes more sense. I think it should be okay, right? Have I made any error? Okay, let me keep it this way. So the point is this bracket opens here, this ends here. Within this, we have got this information. We are calling the agent. We are saying this is the agent. Agent is going to do the task because there is no direct LLM attached right now. So using responses.create, if you remember the diagram, it's the purpose of an agent. So let me just open this thing in a separate lab explanation, visuals, hello agent. Let us just make sense. So if you remember, responses dot something was there, right? So if I come here, responses dot create, okay? And then we are passing the information that hey, this responses will come from an LLM and instruction, and if there are any tools, which expects an input. Okay, this OpenAI client, which is going to connect to the agent, is going to expect an input. So I'm saying I just purchased a new insurance policy. What does it typically come? Okay, now it is giving me a response. Why is it giving this way response? Because I've defined you are smart claims, a friendly insurance agent created by Contoso. You help customers, blah blah blah. Only of this instruction, it is saying, "Hello, I'm smart claims, your friendly assistant. Congratulations." And then it is actually coming from the LLM's pre-trained data. But I have set up an instruction. That's the reason it is behaving this. Okay. I hope that's fine. So we are able to create. Now, if you remember conversations.create, In the conversations.create, you remember you need to specify. See, the moment you see conversations.create, you need to specify the ID here. So this is done. If I come here, this is done. This is created. Now you just need to pass the ID. And then if I go to ask, what is there in this ask? Let me come up here. ASKS. It should be there somewhere. Function ask. Do you have no idea? Okay, I have defined it here itself then. Okay, so here I am defining user is going to give the input. Okay, user input will come. Okay, it will come in the next set. So we are defining the function here, user input. This is just a helper information of what is this function going to do. Helper to find messages within the same conversation. Okay, here if you see, again, we are passing that same information. Okay, so the only thing that is changing here, if I run this, then I have attached the conversation ID. Now remember what will happen with this. The moment I run this function, always it will come with that conversation ID. I think I have defined this. No, let me just run. The moment I call this function, I'm going to say I want to file a claim. Okay, let me just see. Now if you see this is the first thing, okay, and I am able to get a response. Then I'm asking another question. See, if you see, this is where I'm getting a response. Then I'm saying what documents will I need to submit? Have I specified that it is a car accident in the second statement? No, right? If I ask, it will automatically understand that it is asking for a car. Can you see? We have looked into agents, right? Now, this is pretty, to be very honest, this is about generate data, which you can actually go through. Okay. Just to showcase, we are just going to generate data that is already being generated, to be very honest. I've already generated the data. Okay. And if I can show it to you, we are just generating a data for some amount ranges, if you see, for different types. Okay. We are just generating some data that we want to go ahead and use. Okay. And here, if you see, we are just generating a data. Okay. And nothing else apart from that. We are just using pandas to be able to read. So what I'm going to do, I'll just skip this part. You can always go through this. Okay. Just to showcase the moment you will run this piece of code, this will be there with you, right? This data will already be there with you, but since I didn't add, I'm just generating the data. Okay, and I'll just showcase the data to you so that we can make more sense of it. Okay, I'll just show you this data from here itself. Not going at all very fast, just helping you understand that this is something that will come with you. Okay, so just to showcase, if I open this claims data, photos of claims data, we have some information. We have claims ID, we have policy number, we have policy holder name. This is the name of the customer. Then we have claims date, we have incident date, then we have different types of claims, if you can see. Then we have, you can say claims amount, whether it is approved. Okay, so if you see approved amount, status, adjuster, what was the adjuster able to find? Okay, fraud flag, whether it is fraud or not. Then fraud score. Based on that, fraud was being given. If you see, fraud flag is equal to true, that means the fraud score was very high. So based on some threshold, it has been determined whether this is a fraud or not. Some region, some policy type, deductible amount, settlement date, processing days. This is what we have with respect to some claims data. Okay, just to keep it simple, we have this data in place, right? Just to showcase. Then we have some policy also to be able to process the claim. So if I open this, there are different types of coverages: auto insurance, property insurance, health insurance, life insurance, liability insurance, okay, exclusion and limitation. So this is some information related to what you can say what you can say with respect to the organization's policy information. So I'll keep this as it is. Okay, if you want to see, you can see that in detail. Okay, you do have information. How are we generating the data? So if you see, we are configuring parameter that hey, we want to have 500 records. It should be regenerated whenever we want to regenerate. So we are adding a seed. What basically happens, with the help of a seed, if you run that program again, it will regenerate the same set of response in your system. If you set a seed and if you repeat that same seed, it will generate the same set of information. So just to have, you can say, reproducibility, you can set the seed value. But right now, We are getting 500 records. We are generating random with some realistic amount setting. Okay, we have set some information directly and we are generating random values between that amount. We are writing a CSV. It is going to get stored in a data folder. This is the information, and there are two files. One is this, another we are writing, which is going to be Contoso insurance policy markdown file. Okay, this is what we will have, and it will have the way we have curated. We will have some fraud rate. Okay, we will have regions. We will have incident time. Okay, in which this claims was being asked for. Okay, so we have this data, we have this policy, and there are some labs wherein we are going to go ahead and use this. So if you see, if I show you file search, you will see automatically markdown file is being used for file search. If you see lab number six is multi-tool agent. Again, we are using file search. But if you see lab number 4, wherein we are doing code interpretation, we are purposefully using CSV file. Do remember that. Okay. When are we using CSV file? For the reason I told you, right? We are using when we are going to do code interpreter kind of a thing. So this is some data that we have in place. We can again look into that. Let me take you to a very important thing, which is about, you can say, file search. Now, let me just explain you this. So let us just look into this. What are we trying to go ahead and do? We are going to go ahead and take this file, which is a markdown file. We are going to upload this file. Okay. And there is a function called as upload and fold. What do you mean by upload and fold? Again, this is part of your Foundry agent. It provides you an inbuilt file search system. It is not an AI, Azure AI search. It comes within Foundry. There is a file search process available within Foundry. So if you want to go ahead and update a data, or I'll put it this way, if you have a document and you want to go ahead and convert that document into a vector, then you have a function within Foundry, okay, project, which chunks the data that you already have. It embeds the data into vector form and keeps the indexes ready for you to go ahead and do a RAG on top of it. So what do you have? You are going to make use of a function which is upload and fold, which is actually going to chunk, embed, and index the data. And you're going to store it as a vector store. How are you going to store it as a vector store? Foundry, okay, I'll put it this way. Foundry has, okay, option where the data is stored in vector directly without creating vector database, without creating a separate vector database. So it has an inherent vector database that comes along with Foundry. Okay. Foundry comes with a option with an inbuilt vector DB. And that inside that inbuilt vector DB itself is an Azure AI search based vector database. But you do not have a control on top of it. I'll put it this way. You have a full control and flexibility on top of it. But when you are going to keep on uploading some documents, maybe from the customers, which you directly want to go ahead and have a Foundry to chunk it, you can go ahead and use an inbuilt vector database that is again built on top of Azure AI search itself. Okay. So suppose I'll upload a document in a Foundry. It is going to be chunked. It is going to be converted into vector. And that vector information will be indexed and kept in a vector store. Okay. Now, once that vector information is there in a vector store, we are going to make use of a function which is called as file search tool. So if you see here, file search tool connects to your vector store. Now, I'll put it this way. It's not that you need to connect to an inherent, or you can say inbuilt vector database that comes with Foundry. It's not that. Okay. Apart from that, you can even connect to an Azure AI search, which can be your inherent vector database. Okay. So file search tool can help you connect to vector store that might be coming with Foundry, or that might be there as a separate service, which is called as Azure AI search. So you can make use of file search tool to connect it to a vector store. Right now, we are going to connect to a vector store, which is an inherent part of our Foundry system. Okay. The Foundry project comes with a vector store. Just to showcase that to you, if I come up here, let me come here. maybe here. If you see, we do have something called as, I think we do have it here, data plus indexes. If I show you here, you can see that we can go ahead and upload a data here itself. Okay. And we can, if I go to vector store, here you can see if I have any vector store, I will automatically be able to see it here. Okay. But right now I do not have a vector store, but I can create a vector store and I can even attach a vector store that might be an Azure AI cell. Absolutely possible. Okay. So if I want to create, again, we have an option here to create that. But right now, what are we going to go ahead and do? We are going to use this to be able to create a vector store. I'll again repeat, we will have a document. We're going to upload the document. I'll explain you the meaning of poll. Okay. So we are going to upload a document, which is going to be first chunk, then embedded, then that will be stored as an index, which will be there in the vector store. We are going to make use of file search tool to attach that to, you can say, to connect to vector store. Now, once this is done, this file search tool will be attached to the agent. Okay. If you remember, agent, I told you, agent has models, agent has instructions, and agent has option to connect to tools. So right now we are going to connect a file search tool. So let us just look. So the first thing is, if you see, I told you this aspect, this will be attached to the agent file search tool. It will be attached to the agent as a tool. Then a user asks a question. This is indexing pipeline. Then we have query flow. Right? Query flow basically means a user asks a query. Max auto liability coverage. This is what the user is asking. Agent decides to search document. This is what is important. Agent is going to decide that, hey, we need to search the document based on the user query. Okay. Then it is going to find relevant document chunks and then ground the answer. Like you can say, then it is going to go ahead and give you the response with citations. Okay. Section citation if required. Okay. Now the process is pretty simple. You upload a document that gets chunked. Each chunk is converted into a vector. Each user question is also vectorized. Remember this. Closest chunks are retrieved. Agent uses chunk to answer. Okay. And one of the things, if you see, if you want to create a vector store, okay, using an SDK, you are going to make use of this. This will help you create indexes. Okay. This will help you upload the file. This will help you connect to store. This, prompt agent definition. I hope you remember. This helps you connect to model, instruction, as well as tool. In our tool, what will be the type of tool? It will be a file search tool. If you want to delete a vector store at any point of time, you can delete a vector store using this. So we will look into this. This will be more like a cleanup operation. So let me open this file search thing and let us just go through this one by one. Okay. So first of all, we are creating a RAG-based agent, which is going to go ahead and do a question answer on top of my policy document. Okay. Now, the first thing, if we can see here, first we need to select the kernel. Let me select the kernel. Let me run this. So if you see, we are getting get clients, we are getting model, and we are getting something called as policy doc. Now, what is this policy doc? This is actually going to go ahead and look into my data and open this markdown file for me directly. So within the config, I have already written what is policy doc. This variable is actually a constant which is going to pull this document forward. That is what we are doing, policy. Okay. So let this just happen. Just give it some time. So this is just an information that we want to pull. If you remember, prompt agent definition is going to use, we are going to connect file search tool to our agent. So we need to call this class file search tool. Then we are getting get clients. We know from where are we getting the get clients. We are getting the get client from this get client function, which has two things, project client and OpenAI client. Some issue. Let me just clear the output. Let me refresh. Just give it a minute. Now, once this is done, the first thing is, if you see, again, using OpenAI client, it has a method vector store.create. We can give a name and we can automatically create a vector. So this will be there automatically where in my Foundry, because I am connecting it to the Foundry project. So this is my vector ID. Okay, so I have created a vector store and I'm able to get the vector ID by using the method that is attached to it. So I'm using a property to get the vector ID. Now, this is important. We are trying to go ahead and upload a document. If you remember policy doc, we are saying read this information. Okay, this document. Okay, we are saying that we need to open the document. This is just a binary code to read any text file. Okay, that may not be plain text. Right now, it is a markdown file, right? So if you have PDF, if you have some images, or if you have some markdown file that you want to use, that you can use RB, which is going to go ahead and help you. This is a function from Python which is going to help you read the policy document. So if you see, we are making, if you remember here, if I go back here, if you see, we are creating a vector store. Then in that vector store, we have an option file wherein we are going to use a method upload and fold. Now, what upload and fold does, basically, when we say fold, it is going to wait until the process is completed before returning the result. So we want to upload the entire file. That's the reason. This is first upload and fold. Fold basically means wait until the process is completed. So the moment this will be done, we will have a file index. So this is the file index and this is the ID for that file index. So earlier we had a vector store. Then we have indexed a file in that vector store. This is the file that we have indexed in this vector store. If there is any other file that you want to index, you can index other files also, guys. We have just indexed one file in this vector store. You can index as many files as you want, and you can attach that file directly as a vector store. So we have indexed the files. We are not using Azure AI search. We are just using the capability of Foundry agent itself, or Foundry project itself. Now, once this is done, if you remember file search tool, what it expects you to provide the vector ID which you want to go ahead and use. So if you see file search tool, what it is going to go ahead and do, it is going to search the vector store for relevant document passages. So if you see here, we are just going to go ahead and attach that vector store. In this vector store, can there be more than one document or not? I'm asking the question. So we are just saying that with respect to this ID, I want you to go ahead and pull up all the vectors, okay, as a file search. So I'm going to pass this as a tool. So I'm just creating a file search tool. Now, if I go down here, I'm just using that same thing. I am using agent, creating a version of that agent. This will be version number 1 right now. If you run it again, it will be version number 2. If you run it again, it will be version number 2. Okay. So right now I'm creating an agent. I'm giving a name to the agent. This is the same thing from agent definition. Remember this? It takes a lot of input. Right now I'm saying model, instruction. You are a claims policy assistant for contour insurance. Answer question only using the uploaded policy document. Rule, cite the specific citation. If not in the document, say so. Okay, be precise with numbers and limit. For exclusion, suggest alternative if available. Okay, if there is something. And here, if you see, I'm using tool. Now, if you see, I have added the tool. Now, there is very important thing. If you see, this is a list, right? Can you see? We can see a list thing. That means, to be very honest, when you're going to pass the tools, remember that you are allowed to pass multiple tools. Maybe tool 1. If I want to pass multiple tools, maybe tool 1, comma tool 2. Okay, if I want to go ahead and do this kind of a scenario, that's the reason the SDK provides you an option to pass it as a list. So you can pass a list of tools. Each tool can have multiple, you can say, documents that you have already gone ahead and vectorized and store it in the vector database. So the moment I'll run this, this is just the agent configuration that we are doing. What it is going to go ahead and do, it is going to create an agent. Again, you can check in the Foundry, it will be that smart claims policy QA. Version 1 is the version that we are outputting here. And this is the version 1. We are saying V and then give me the version, which is 1. So V is just the name that we are providing. If I come down here, again, conversation create, because I want to have Q&A, right? Wherein I want to retrieve the history also. So rather than using response.create, first we will create conversation. This will have a conversation ID. I hope you remember there is an attachment, right, which is proceeding. So whatever we learned in the last lab, you can make sense. So we are attaching conversation ID. Then we are attaching the agent information. This is the agent information. And here we are specifying the input, which will going to be something called as, you can say input will be something which will be passed as a question. So right now we are just saying this will be a parameter that will be passed when we are going to call this function. Okay. So if I run this right now, I could have directly passed the information and retrieve the output, but directly pass the input, but we are not doing that. Now here I am passing some questions. So these are the questions. What is the maximum auto liability coverage? Are flood damage covered? How do I file a claim? Blah, blah, blah. And here, if you see, I am making use of IQ. I'm using an enumerator to be able to process. So basically, I am going ahead and I is equal to question. Q is equal to, sorry, I is equal to iteration. Q is equal to question input that the user is going to ask. So this is the question and it is going to iterate through it. Once it iterates, you will be able to see the response. Everything is coming from the document. If you want to have a scrollable, you can see that this is where we are getting the output. What is the maximum auto liability coverage? The maximum auto liability coverage specified is as follows: bodily injury and property damage. Okay. And apart from that, our flood damages covered is not covered. How do I file a claim? This is the process that it is saying to file a claim. Okay. Required documentation, everything is there in that MD file. That's the reason it is giving me a response. If you want to inspect the chunks, I'll just show you. So basically, this is the code that has been, I'll read this code first. Let me just complete this just to show you. If you want to get a retrieve chunk information also, you have a method that you can use. I'll just show you what are we doing here. The same thing is there. If you can see here, we are making use of another thing, which is include. So if I click on this, you can see there are multiple, you can say, properties that you can pass. Conversation, can you see? Context management, input, include is also there. What is this include? This gives you an option to get the file search called result also. Basically, I want to get from where were you able to find the result. So I'm asking a question, what are the exclusions under auto insurance? Okay. This is just a print statement of this response that I'm going to get. Okay. And after this, I'm just going ahead and outputting it in the proper formatted way. So just to showcase, the moment I ask this question, it is giving me a response and this is the retrieve chunk. So if I run this is just to help you understand that we can make use of something very important, which is file search call. Whatever has been searched, I want to get the result also of it. I can go ahead and make use of this result to be able to get the response. So this is the exact parameter that you need to pass. Exact parameter. You cannot change it. This is the parameter that you need to pass as well. Once you pass the parameter, and if you want to get that information, you will be able to see that you will be able to see from where are you getting this chunk information. Okay. Now let me just do one thing. I'll just come up here. Let me copy this entire thing in front of you. Let me scroll down. Okay. Let me come up here. Let me ask a question which can be a little weird. Okay. I'll say, yeah, I'm just asking a question. 1 second. It's still not giving the response. Okay. I'll tell you what is happening. Let me just come up here. The upload document does not contain any reference about this. If you want, check their official website, it is saying. And if you see here, I'll just show you the score. If I come up here, maybe. How is it giving the response from the document? It is still doing the chunking, but it is doing the chunking, but it is still saying whatever I have retrieved from that also the response is not possible. It is doing the chunk. If you see, it is by default doing some chunk. Okay. It is retrieving top three chunks. But to be very honest, whatever chunks it is retrieving, it is saying the document does not contain any information. It is retrieving the chunk based on the similarity of the question. Okay. If I change this, maybe let me just change it. Where is the question? Let me ask. What is square root of 2? It is giving some reference document to be very honest, but if it is an irrational number, it cannot be expressed as a simple fraction. Okay, we are already, I'll just put it this way. Let me just put it. Only answer, remember, even if you know. Even if you know the answer from your trading data, if the answer is not in the policy document, say you don't know and suggest to contact support for more information. Is that okay? I've just added one piece of information. Is that okay? Conversation ID and just ask the question. This is fine. I do not want to run this. This is okay. Let me just, where is my question? This. See, now is it okay? Is that okay?
Quick pause. If you are getting value out of this so far, we have got something special for you. We have put together a completely free masterclass that goes way deeper than this video. Real world AI architecture, advanced agent patterns, and how to actually take projects like this from your laptop into production. We have helped more than 46,000 learners to land their dream jobs and certifications in the field of AI. So the link is pinned at the top of the description below. Go grab it now while you are thinking about it. It's completely free and it will genuinely change how you approach building AI systems. All right, back to the build.
So we are talking about one of the things within Foundry, which is about agent service. Okay. And in regard to that, there are many things that I have gone ahead and let me take you ahead with respect to what we were covering. So if you remember, we were looking into a project, which is this one. We are talking about Smart Claim project, wherein we are actually understanding the overall aspect of Foundry. And why am I explaining you the overall aspect of Foundry is very important because based on this overall aspect, we can go ahead and you can say we can create a solution out of it. But any project, to be very honest, is basically dependent upon the concepts that you learn. And to take you through that, we were understanding how to connect to Foundry project. Okay. Then how to call an LLM. What is the distinguish between LLM and agent? Then generation of data is again something that will already be there with you. So this is not required. But apart from that, we also looked into file search, which is an inherent managed, you can say, a vector database that is part of agent service. Now I'm going to talk something with respect to code interpreter. We are going to see something called as code interpreter. We will see function tool later. We will also see multi-tool. If you have multiple tool, how can you go ahead and use it within the Foundry agent? So if you see file search is one of the tools, code interpreter is one of the tools. But what if you have multiple tools? How can you go ahead and interact with multiple tools? In that multiple tool, you can have file search, you can have code interpreter, you can have web search. Okay. So that also is possible. So first we look into code interpreter, then we look into function tool, and then we can look into Tabili search, and then we can look into multi-tool. Apart from that, if you have your own functions, okay, that you want to go ahead and call, so how Microsoft Foundry assists you for an end-to-end observability. Okay, we also have that. Then how can you stream the output as it comes out from the model? If you want to do live streaming of the output, how can you go about and do that? Then if I want to go ahead and replace file search with a Azure AI search, how to go about that aspect. And finally, we will see a markdown wherein we will see this application. I'll not show you how this application is created because just by using this markdown and the lab content, you can actually go ahead and use AI to create this application. And you can even deploy it on Azure because all the instructions are already there here. Okay. And all the files are already there here. Okay. So just to give you an insight, when we are talking about Foundry agent, what are we talking about? We are talking about, first of all, what is Foundry agent? We are talking about Foundry agent. Okay. What is there in the agent? In the agent, we have LLM. So how to connect to LLM? Okay. Then how to go ahead and use an agent which can have LLM, which can have, okay, which can have tools and which can have search. Okay. This is what we were talking about. So we will be looking into tools and search going forward. And within the tool, we will be talking about code interpreter tool, which is an inherent tool for data analysis within Foundry agent. Then we'll be talking about how to call multiple tools within an agent and how does it automatically understand which tool to call. Then we have Tabili search, which is about web search, then observability, then streaming output based on tokens. How many tokens are generated? Based on that, you want to have live streaming of the output. So suppose this is token number one, this is token number two, this is token number three, this is token number four. How it actually outputs in the, if you remember, this is the same way how OpenAI outputs. It does not output everything at one go. It outputs everything. So you can say stream by stream based on the token generation. So how can you stream something? Okay. And finally, we will also look into AI search. And finally, we will look into the entire, you can say, aspect together, which is deploying the web app on Azure using something called as Fast API to create an API based on what we have learned. So let me just take you through code interpreter. And before we go ahead and look into code interpreter, let me just explain you the code interpreter thing via the visual. So this is how we are talking about code interpreter. So the setup and how the query works within the code interpreter. The setup is we are going to go ahead and upload a file in a Foundry, which will be a CSV file. Okay. Then we are going to go ahead and add that file to our agent. We are going to add that file to our agent using a method files.create. So this is how we will first we'll upload the file on the Foundry side. We will upload it in the Foundry project. This is where we will upload it in the Foundry project. Then we will go ahead and you can say add that file to our agent. So within the Foundry project, we can have n number of agents. So we are going to add it to our agent using a method which is files.create. Now, when we add this file, we want to specifically use it for what? So when we want to use it as a code interpreter, when you define, there is one parameter which you need to specify, purpose is equal to assistant. In the parameter of this agent attachment, sorry, this file attachment to the agent, you need to pass one parameter, purpose is equal to assistant. Only when you pass purpose is equal to assistant, okay, agent will see this as a code interpreter tool to be called based on your question. Simple. So when your question is about analysis, based on if you have specified that, hey, I want to use this file, okay, for my assistant, or what you can say, code interpreter purpose. So you can specify one key terminology, a parameter, which is purpose is equal to assistant. This is important. Once you do that, okay, then basically to load the content and everything, you're going to make use of code interpreter tool. And there is something called as container auto. So you're going to use this to preload the file. So basically you will have the file, you're going to connect it to the agent, and to connect it to the agent, you are going to use some class. So you're going to use code interpreter tool and container auto. And in this parameter, in this method parameter, when you're going to connect it to the agent, you're going to specify the purpose of connecting this to the agent to use it as a code interpreter tool is I want it to be used as an assistant. When we say assistant, this is the primitive name that was being available for code interpreter because I have worked with assistant API, which was primitive thing before the advent of Foundry to be able to do data analysis. That's the reason they use that keyword purpose is equal to assistant. This is done. So via this, you will be able to set up. Now the question comes from the user. User wants a summary of some data. So the moment user says that I want this and this information to be comprehensively extracted from a CSV file, maybe I want to run a pandas library and I want to go ahead and run some function. So moment you go ahead and ask a question based on this purpose, okay, it will automatically call the code interpreter class to be able to write the information in the form of some, you can say Python functions to be able to carry out the task for you. So agent write code only when you say purpose is equal to assistant. Okay. And that is where now, when you say purpose is equal to assistant, to execute this, there is requirement of a sandbox environment. We need a virtual machine, right? So when you say purpose is equal to assistant, basically you're saying that I want to use code interpreter tool to go ahead and do some code analysis. It will at the back end switch a sandbox environment, which is going to install pandas, matplotlib, and this is all happening in isolation, and it is happening on the runtime. The moment you specify purpose is equal to assistant. So it will create a sandbox environment to go ahead and install. It will automatically, it already has Python and pandas all installed. Okay. The libraries are all installed. It is just going to go ahead and take your quest, you can say sheet, okay, data, and do some manipulation on top of it, and then go ahead and give you maybe a text analysis, or maybe it is going to go ahead and give you a result. Okay, simple. This is what is going to happen. So just to keep it again simple, I'll keep it very short. Agent writes Python code. You never see the code. Okay, it is being written in a sandbox environment. Sandbox has pandas, matplotlib, all the libraries that are required to go ahead and do analysis. All Python libraries are already there. It only supports Python code interpreter as of now, okay, for analysis. CSV is preloaded via file ID. So since you do this, it is already loaded into this sandbox environment, okay, via the file ID. Okay. Now charts are saved as PNG inside this container. So understand, we do not have the access to this container. So it's there inside the container. You need to export it outside somewhere if you want to view the charts. See, you can see the data analysis. But if you're running it in the console, you know that your system, if you're running it in the console, even like if you're running in the command line, you know that You cannot see the output in the command line, right? Simple. You need to go ahead and output this in a particular format, in a display format, maybe in some, you can say UI. And then you can, if you have outputted that in a UI, then you can see those things live in a environment. But it will be there inside the container. You need to export it and then you need to display it. And I'm going to show how can we export and display. Okay, that is where I was finding some issue, but we can do that. Okay, then we can download charts. I told we can download charts. This is what I have done because it will be inside container. And then you can display the chart wherever you want to display. Remember that code runs server side, not on your machine. This is something very important because we are using a tool which is coming from the sandbox environment, which is running in the sandbox environment. Just by specifying that purpose is equal to assistant, we are able to trigger this tool, okay, to be able to analyze the thing. This is all happening within the container that is absolutely, you can say, secure, but this is not in your control. Okay. Apart from that, if you want to download charts, I told you, you can make use of containers.file.content to download the chart. These are two things, code interpreter plus container auto to preload the file. This is code interpreter tool, okay, to enable the sandbox. And when you specify purpose is equal to assistant, it knows that within this sandbox, I want to go ahead and use a, you can say data analysis function. So we need to specify that. Okay. Now let me just take you ahead here and let us just keep it pretty short and easy. So the first thing, I have already got the environment in place. Let me just check. Yeah, the environment is already there. Okay, if you can see here, this is where I have the environment VENV, I think somewhere here. Okay, yeah, here I have. See to it that your environment is visible. So I have my environment visible. So right now I have already loaded the environment. Let me just run this piece of line. And you know that I have got some get clients, model, claim CSV. This is going to open the claim CSV. So in the config.py, you have already gone ahead and created, you've already gone ahead and created those parameters that you need to go ahead and use. Any parameter that you are required to go ahead and use, like project root, okay. Similarly, if you're going to go ahead and use something called as claim CSV output directory, you will be able to see it there. Okay, it will be there somewhere here. What is claim CSV? You will automatically be able to find within this function. Okay, it will automatically be there. Now let me just come out of it. So if I come up here, so what I'm saying, I'm getting something from util.config. I'm importing this model get client, which is going to call the OpenAI client. If you remember, project client and OpenAI client, which we are aware. Now, the first thing, once I have the OpenAI client, I'm going to use, if you see files.create, use this client as an assistant. That means I'm going to use code interpreter functionality for this claim CSV. Is that clear? So I'm automatically saying that open this file and use it as a code interpreter assistant file. I hope that's okay. All right. So this is done. Now I have uploaded a file. If you can see, we have uploaded a file. Now, if the file is uploaded, it should be there somewhere here. So let me just give it a try. If we come back, I have already got this thing. I've uploaded a file, right? So let me just check if the file is there or not. Okay, I've uploaded many files and I just need to check which file am I talking about. RQ something. Can you see RQ something here? I hope you can see. So I've attached the file to this agent. Okay. Now here, if you see, I'm going ahead and calling a class code interpreter tool, which uses code interpreter container auto. Container auto, if you remember, this is going to open up a sandbox environment where it is going to load the file with the help of file.id. So there is an ID associated to the file. This is the ID. Okay. So what are we saying? This ID, if you can see this, sorry, I'll go to data. I have an ID here, right? So if I click on this, you can see that we will have an ID. So I think we can see the ID. I think this should be it. This itself should be the ID if I'm not wrong. So this itself is the ID. And now what are we saying? We are saying that please use the file ID. This is the file ID and attach it to the container where we are going to do code interpretation. Okay, that's it. Fine. So configured sandbox with claim CSV. This is the printout statement that we have laid out. Now, the next thing, if you see, now I am going ahead and creating an agent here. See, I am creating an agent right now. Earlier, whatever agent you saw, that was a dummy agent. You can see a default agent that is created. But right now, I am going to create an agent right now. What is the name of the agent? Smart Analytics. I know that I want to attach model. instruction, and the tool which is code interpreter. And now if I run this, it will create an agent in my Foundry. What is the name of the agent? Smart Analytics. And the version is 1. I have just attached V for a reference. The version is just 1. Now, if I refresh this, you can see, hopefully we should be able to see, we should be, not sure, because we have created an agent. It may take a little bit of time, but we have created an agent. Once we have created an agent, Smart Analytics agent, something I have created, let me just check it out. Not sure why is it not showing. Just give me a minute. So why is the agent not showing up? If the agent is not shown up, there could be several reasons. Deployment delay, which is absolutely fine. Permissions are there, to be very honest. Should not be a problem. Okay. Yeah. UI refresh. I think it should be deployment delay. There can be delay. That's absolutely more what I can have. So we have an agent and it is actually part of Foundry because I'm using everything from the Foundry. Everything is same. Okay. Nothing has changed. The same Foundry project that I'm talking about, AI services, smart claim project. This is my project endpoint and GPT-4o. So I'll just check that out. Just let me just work on this aspect. Now I want to create a conversation. We already know, so this was important. We want to create a conversation and we need to pass the conversation ID and we need to use the responses. This is the agent, name, version, everything is in place. So we are defining a question. Here we are saying this is the function and we are going to ask questions to this via this function. So my question is load the CSV, give the analytics summary, total claims. First question, total amount. This is my question. Load the CSV, give me an executive summary, total claim, total amount, average thing, blah, blah, blah. I have got this question. Okay. So this is my question. And I want to go ahead and get an output for this. So the moment I run this, it will work because it is connected, to be very honest. So what is connected? You know what all things are connected. Can see that input is going, agent is connected, and you know that this OpenAI client, if you come up here, you know that agent already has code interpreter. And we have already specified, if you go up a little bit, if you remember, we have already specified that use this code interpreter because here we have specified purpose is equal to assistant. So everything is in line. Now, if I go down here, you can see I've got the executive summary, total claim processed, total claim amount, average claim amount, distribution. This is what we have got. If we wanted to ask some more questions, we could have asked more questions also. That would have been okay. Okay. If we wanted to ask. Fine. So I'm asking one question. And if you want to ask more questions, then you need to pass it as a list. And then you need to iterate through the list. If you want to ask something else, I'll just do one thing. Though there is a question, but let me just say a something weird thing. I'll just say, who is Jalal? This is also good. Let us just give it a point. Now, if you see, I'm just saying create a bar chart. Actually, it will create a bar chart and you will see that I cannot see it because it is running in the sandbox environment. Can you see? Download the bar chart from the sandbox environment, which I cannot do. I need to import it somewhere outside. That's the only thing. But it's able to do this part. So how to import? We can do that import thing, right? This is where the data is right now. We just need to use that function. If you remember, I told you we can make use of this function. There was a function to import the bar chart, right? Yeah. Download bar chart using containers.file API. So containers.file.content can help us download. That is separate thing. Let me just come up here. Let me just ask a very weird question that can be something which is irrelevant. Okay. Give me top 5 claims by Jalal. Just asking a very weird question. Let us just give it a try. Okay. Can you see there is nothing as such and it is able to give me an output in regard to that also. Now, again, if you want to create more charts, you can create more charts. That's absolutely fine. So try to understand what is happening. It's right now I'm saying use professional colors. Okay. I'll say use professional colors as used by EY company theme. Okay. I will also say, okay, use legends and everything. Okay. Use legends and title and whatever is needed to make it something blah, blah, blah. Let me just output this also. Okay, so I'm just outputting this also. This is also absolutely fine. So just making it use EY company theme, how EY writes. Okay. So it should be able to go ahead and do that. We will see a professional chart where it is. We will check about it. Again, I want to see analysis of how many percent are flagged. Okay. From found analysis, that is all there. Okay. That information is already there. We are trying to find this information and we are getting rates by region. So I'm able to get now we can ask as many questions as we want. So I'm just asking questions right now. Apart from that, this questions, let me check. I have R1, R2. I think R2 is already replaced. R1 is already replaced something. That's fine. Let me just come up here. And if I show you here, this one. So this is where I am using AI. To be very honest, I am using AI to output the information that is there in that sandbox environment. So what I'm saying, the responses are there in R1, R2, R3, R4, R5. Chart count starts from zero. Create a directory. Okay. What is output directory? You will again be able to see this information somewhere here. Okay. So we should be able to see if we just put it out here. Okay. Should be there somewhere. Output directory, if we have defined, we are saying make the output directory if it is not there. Okay. That's absolutely fine. So we are creating an output directory. And once we create an output directory, we are outputting everything in that folder. So let me just run this. So now if you can see, we are just using that variable. And now if I go to the output, I'm going to output and this is what I am seeing. See the second chart. Okay, I wanted to have that EY theme. I'm not sure whether it has or not, but this is incident type and this is also, maybe it is outputting the same thing. I just need to check that out. So I'm saying whatever can be outputted from this. And if there is any image, to be very honest, we are saying download the image and save it in the rendered chart. And it is able to find the chart. This is chart number one and this is chart number two. Okay. And if you want to display it as an image here itself, you can display it as an image here also. So you can use IPython dot display and you can display the image directly in the system itself. Finally, I'll just try to see that agent again here. I don't know what is the problem. Hopefully it should be seen. I'm not sure why is the agent. There should be something that I need to figure it out. Okay, I'll just check why is the agent not getting displayed. All right. Because if I try to delete, it will delete the agent, to be very honest. It will delete the agent. I can clean up and it will actually delete the agent from that same thing. I'm not sure why is it not showing up, but it should be able to create. There must be something that is not actually shown in the UI maybe. I need to figure it out. But right now, if you want to delete the agent, if you're done with the work, you can delete the agent also. All right. Now let us look. I'll skip fifth and sixth right now. Let me take you through Tavily search right now. And why I'm using Tavily search, to be very honest, when I was trying to use Bing search, we have Bing API. Okay. We have Bing. We can use Bing also. But the only thing when I was trying to use Bing resource, I was like trying to add Bing grounding with Bing search. Okay. There was some issue via which it was not able to work out. Okay, so if you have a Bing resource also, you can use that also. Okay, I can just give some name. I can select a pricing tier and you can use this also if you want to use. Right now, I'm using a free thing, which is Tavily. If you want a Tavily key for free, you can just search for, you can come up here. You can search for Tavily key. It's free. And if you go to tavily.com, just a minute. So you can use Bing also and you can use Tavily also. I'll just say login. It gives 1,000 searches free per month, and you can see that this is what I'm using. I have this key, and anyone can get this key via the some account. So it gives you 1,000 credits per month free, which you can use for your, you can say for your training and development project. You can use this. Okay. Or if you have this also, you can go ahead and use this also. I did try to use this, but it was encountering an error. Let me just check. Okay, so we can use Bing search, we can use Google search, we can use Stabilize search. Okay, right now it is getting created, which is very good. Okay, but maybe in the region it is getting created, but since it was not getting created, I'm using a Stabilize search. Okay, so right now, what is this about? To just help you understand, let me come back to the visual and let me open this web search thing. So what is basically going to happen? This is just to help you understand that I can even go ahead and ask a question. Okay. The moment I ask a question, I can attach another tool, which is web search tool, which is going to take the user query. And then it is going to go to Tavily to be able to search the results. Okay. So it will search the URL as well as scroll through the URL content, fetch the information from it. give it back to the agent, and you are going to get the answer with or without URL as per your information, if you want it with citation or without citation. Okay. So now, just to keep it simple, this is what we are trying to go ahead and do here. So just to show you this aspect, we are like some of the reason where we can use it, right? We want to find latest regulatory updates, okay? Industry news, maybe from a particular region only, we can specify that in the prompt itself that we want the search to come from a particular region. We can absolutely do that, okay? I want to specify some state specific regulation, regulatory update I want to get from internet, industry news, maybe from a particular region. In that case, if I want to go ahead and integrate my solution with a web search, that is also possible. So right now, again, everything is based on intent and it can have multiple things, but right now we are just talking about one at a time. So first of all, we are getting clients, model, okay, ask with function. There is one uh, function which we can check and we are getting those. We need to import Tavily client. So from Tavily, I'm importing Tavily client. We know about prompt agent definition. All right. Now, if you see the next thing here, we are defining that thing. So right now, Tavily client is equal to null. What we are trying to go ahead and do here is we are defining web search. It is going to take the query, which is going to come from the user in the form of string. It is going to output also string. So it is taking input in the form of string, outputting also string. We are defining the function. This is very important because this is the thing that your intent looks for to call the tool. So if this is going to be used, this function is going to be used by the tool, okay, then this definition becomes very important. Search the web for current information using Tavily API. Okay. So based on this definition, it may go for a search and we can have more profound definition. So right now I'm just defining one thing and I'm saying this is how you need to return the output in the JSON format. Again, this is what is done. Now, if you see here, we are saying, see here, this is where I'm defining the function. So I'm defining my own function. Just look into this to make sense. So I am creating one list, okay, of function where I'm saying web search is equal to my web search function. Okay. Now, the moment I say function map is equal to, I'm passing a dictionary where I'm saying key, and this is the value that is going to return in the form of JSON. Then I'm saying function tools. This is where I'm defining my own tool. So what am I saying? This is how you can define in a JSON format. You can say type is equal to function, name is equal to web search. This name should map to this one. Okay. So we are saying name is equal to web search. Fine. Then description. If you see the description, search the web for current information. Okay. This description is important. And if you see the same kind of description, though we have put it for the documentation purpose, is also there for website. So this documentation becomes very important. This description. Okay. If you see, search the web for current information about insurance, regulation, industry news, compliance, or any event not in the uploaded document. We can also say only be specific to claims, not any other relevant. We can check that out. Okay. Maybe if I'm going to ask about Jalal, it should not be able to search that because it is not there in the document. So we can have that description more confined. That is okay. So if you see type, name, and we know that this name is going to take this function map. Okay, then description. So it is taking web search. The moment I say web search, it is checking for the output that is coming from this JSON done. And this already has its own definition. Though, to be very honest, even if you remove, earlier I thought this will be important, but even if you remove, that's okay, because we have already got the description here. Okay, fine. So now this is registered as a function tool. Now what are we going to do? We are going to use this function tool. Okay, we are going to use this function tool here. If you see, we are creating an agent, prompt agent definition, model, instruction, and we are passing a function to it. That's it. Okay. So the moment I ask my question, this is where I am just setting it up. So I'm setting up the environment and I'm setting up the agent. Okay. The agent has been configured with that tool. Okay. Now I have some queries, one, two, three, and I want to enumerate through that query using that same function. So if you can see, we are going to go ahead and use that ask with function, which is there. Okay. Which is going to go ahead. If you remember, we have already defined. Now the question is, what are the latest insurance regulatory changes in the US? The moment I ask, it is going to go ahead and search through this websites. I'll click on this scrollable element to make sense. And this is right now getting it from those sources. Okay. Now let me just ask weird question. Do you know K21 Academy? I'm just asking what do they offer insurance professionals? I'll just put it this. Let me remove these questions. I'll put everything, but for this time namesake, let me just remove this. Let me just run. Okay, so it is able to give a response. Okay, with respect to insurance professionals, because I told whatever is not there in the document, go ahead and respond. So it is able to give response because I have added that insurance word. Let me remove this. Okay, and let me just give it a try. Again, we can be more confined and not allow it to answer anything apart from what is there in the document type. It is giving a response, which is not a good thing. Why is it doing that? You know right now why is it doing? Because the prompt is defined in such a way. Okay, so if I go here, it is, you can see, you search to find insurance regulations compliance. This is fine. But the tool that you have here, okay, not there in the current document, I'll say nothing apart. I'm just going to put it. It's done. Again, to be very honest, it is directly going ahead and but we have specified you are a claims intelligence agent, use the web search tool. Okay, I can specify here also. Let me just put this here also. See, now it's done. Is that okay? It has been stopped at the initial level only. Now, if I change, now it's doing a web call search because I've added the word insurance and compliance training. Are they providing compliance training? That's great. Let us just see. Yeah, we have some information is coming from somewhere. Again, we can be more precise and we can get the output as per our desire. The point that is required to be understood, I hope you all are able to make sense. That's important. Okay, let me just put this as it is. Now, let me just come down. So, now apart from that, if, again, I would like to check if the agent, I think you're saying right, the rules I need to check. Let me just check. But even without rule, it should show up here, right? Maybe it is running because I do not have the role, I cannot see it here, but it must be running the information. Let me just check onto the new Foundry if I can find it out somewhere here. I think we have. Did I create this thing? No, right? I did not create. This is something related to other aspects that I've created, claims regulatory, but this is something else. This agent was something else, right? Okay, no worries. I need to give that maybe the aspect. That's it. Okay. So just to help you understand, if you want to get a tool which can go ahead and do search, which can be based apart from your document, okay, then you can specify the definition more clearly to be able to get that search also. Okay. Now again, I'll keep this five, six. Let me go to simple steps, which is streaming. Okay, let me go through the streaming step to make it more sensical. Okay, so let me just come up here. Let me go to streaming. Now, what is the difference? If you see, all the labs that we were seeing, all the outputs were generated at 1 second, all at once. Though at the back end, the outputs are generated token by token, but they arrive all at once. Okay. And to hook the audience generally, you would like, and to save the time of the audience, right? So that they can keep on reading if the output is huge. Okay. You can have tokens streamed as they arrive. Okay, maybe within the gap of zero point 0.3 zero point 0.3 seconds. Allow me a minute, please. Okay. So until the lab, you can say lab 128 or lab 129, we were seeing things which were related only for which were outputting all the tokens at once. But if you want to output the tokens as they come out, then you can go ahead and make use of something called as streaming responses. Now, let me just come up here. So we were talking about this one. So what we are saying, the moment the response is created, okay, what you can go ahead and do, when you create the response, at that time, you can pass a parameter, which is by default false. You can say stream is equal to true. Okay. So you can specify stream is equal to true. One parameter change, completely different UX you will be able to get, output you will be able to. So response created, and you are going to go ahead and get the response one at a time. Okay. It will keep on repeating, like you can say, it is going to go ahead and output. So it will stream the output based on whatever has been executed and send the result back. Basically, you will be able to see it in the streaming side. To help you understand this, let me just close this. Okay, we will see other labs, but just to keep the thing simple, let us just try with some things which are simple. So we are talking about streaming responses, real-time agent we want on our, you can say, user interface. So in that case, first token does take a little bit of time, okay, and then we get the overall output. You can say make it take 30 seconds, 1 minute, based on the response that we want, okay. And apart from that, without streaming, it actually goes ahead and takes time, right? You need to stare at a blank screen until the full response is generated. With streaming, you are able to see all the tokens as they appear. Okay. So rather than waiting and getting the full response, you keep on seeing tokens as they are outputted, which is more of a progressive rendering. Okay. Now, perceived performance improves dramatically if even total time is smaller. So the moment you are able to see that perceived performance is also pretty good. Okay, that is like you can say the UX is also not going to have any error to be able to output. Maybe there is a lot of text that needs to be outputted, and the UX side can also fail. So just to avoid that, we can have streaming bits by bits. Okay, so you can have perceived performance will automatically improve for the UX also. Now, the first thing that we are trying to go ahead and do, we have already got the environment and we are connecting to business functions wherein we have got something called as get claim status and calculate fraud risk. Now, if I show you that aspect, we can come up here and we have got business functions. And here we have told get claim status. Okay. And this is where we are trying to go ahead and get the claim status. Again, it is expecting the claim ID and then it is going to output the string. Okay. There is some function that is being written, which is going to output the claim status. So we are going to use this here. Let me just keep it here. So we are saying get claim status of a user from a file. From this file, we want to get claim status of a user. We also want to calculate fraud risk. Now, we could have done, rather than creating this, we could have gone ahead to calculate fraud risk. Okay, we could have gone ahead and easily did something called as code interpret. That would have been good enough. Rather than writing our own function, what we are writing it here, we could have made use of code interpreter tool. To get claim status also, we could have gone ahead and used code interpreter tool because this is also a query and this is also a query, right? This is a calculation query and this is fetching the information about a particular individual. This does not require you to do RAG, right? It requires you to fetch a response from using a query. So you can define your own query the way you have defined, or you could have gone ahead and used code interpreter also to be able to solve this problem. So it was not required, but since we have, we can use this. Just to help you understand, we could have done this via code interpreter also because it can do data analysis apart from chart visualization. Okay, so let me just, this is all done. Let me just run this. Now, if I scroll down here, the first thing is if you see here, we are creating an agent. Everything looks same. Okay, you are smart claims. This is where we are just specifying the agent. That's it. We are just defining an agent. Okay, this is the agent and this is V and the version is actually 1. If you run it again, automatically it should be, it will, since it has not been outputted, it is still the version 1. Okay, now if I come up here, this is my question. What are the top 3 things a customer should buy? I am saying print the user query, that's fine. Then agent, I want to say flush is equal to true. Okay, so here if you see, if I show you, we are making use of that same thing. Here we are saying stream is equal to what? I hope you all can see. Stream is equal to true. So anywhere, wherever we were using if you remember output streaming, we could have used this variable stream is equal to true and it would have outputted the response in the same way. So if I run this, you will be able to see it will stream the output in a proper way. I hope you can see. If I run it again, you can see it is streaming. It's not coming at 1 second, it is streaming. The tokens, if you see how many tokens, I hope you can count. One, two, three, four, five, something. Only in 5 tokens you're able to get this response because you can see a lot of things getting popped up at one side, right? So if you want to get the token count and everything, we can do that. And every time the response may change a little bit, but we are able to see. Okay. And I'll say output in 1,000 words. Let me just put it. Okay. Let me just give it a try. Just wanted to show this aspect of streaming. Can you see it is actually streamed? It's taking time. Okay. So whatever you want to output, you can output. That's absolutely fine. Okay. And for event in stream, these are some of the outputs. Okay. You want to flush the like end if there is any, you want to say that this is the end. So you can specify that. Apart from that, let's analyze all the events type. There are different events type that comes through stream and you can try. I would recommend you can just give it a try and that should be good enough. Just to stream the things, you can give it a try also. How much time it takes? Okay. For streaming everything, you can see that. Okay. So that is response dot completed. What were the tokens? Everything you can see. This is the text output. Okay. This is the output item. Okay. So this were the actual number of tokens that you can see it here. Yeah. This is the count. Okay. So this is the count and you can see all the information as an event type. What all events occurred when you were going ahead and doing the streaming, you can see all the events. Apart from that, if you want to stream with function calls, we have defined those function calls, right? If you remember, I told we have got those function calls. And this is where we are saying that use that function call that is there in that file. Get claim status and use that. So if you want to, again, I told you can use code interpreter also. That's absolutely fine. And now if I ask a question, this is again for our understanding of streaming the information from a file. And now you can see it is calling a function. Okay. It is calling a tool, which is actually going to go like if I show you here, just to showcase. If I come up here a little bit, you can see just a minute. If I come up here a little bit, I am saying, tell me about the claim 0042. So the moment I say about the claim 0042, it is going to call a tool, which is going to look into a document and send you the result back. Okay. About what is the information. So if I open 0042, let me just check claim 0042. Let me just change it to claim 00. What is the claim? The first claim 0001. 1 second. Let me just change this information to 0001 maybe. Let me just run so that we can see what it is able to output from the file. So if I come up here, it's saying we are seeing the status. So if you can see, this is the information. The status is denied. Can we check that out? What is the status? If we can check it out. What is the status for this person? Status is in this color, orange color, right? What is the status? I hope you can see the status is denied. Okay, so from where am I outputting everything? In a natural language from a CSV by making use of functions. I hope that's okay. You can give it a try to just make sense with respect to how do you want to go ahead and output the stream. You can specify that. Okay, and once we are done with this multi-agent, let me just take you through observability concept. Though we have the lab, you can look into this end to end. How can you go ahead and find all the what you can say insights when the agent interacts? I'll show you this aspect, and then I'll show you something related to Azure AI search, which you must be aware. But we'll just see what can be the difference when it comes to using file search as compared to using Azure AI search. But let us just start with multi-tool. When I'm talking about multi-tool, we are talking about maybe a file search We are talking about code interpreter, maybe a web search, maybe some custom functions that we have. Now, if you try to make sense here, when we are saying file search or Azure AI search, the logic is there from the server side. When we talk about code interpreter, the logic is again from the server side, executing in the sandbox environment. And when we are talking about function, here we are saying that the logic is something written on the client side. Okay, your code that is going to be executed as a function. Okay, you can again have custom function integrated maybe via an Azure function. You want to go ahead and call your custom functions that are going to go ahead and carry out the task for you. Within your agentic scenario, you can again go ahead and do that aspect also. To give you some example, maybe I'm going to ask a simple text-based output question. It is going to go to a file search automatically. If I say about some breakdown, it should automatically understand that it needs to trigger code interpreter. And if I ask something related to status, based on what custom function have I written, it will automatically look for this, what you can say, status ID or claim ID to be able to go ahead and call automatically a custom function. Okay. So there are different things that we can go ahead and do, and we can pass all tools as one list using prompt agent definition, and you can pass all the tools together as a list. Right now, whatever we saw, it was more of, you can say, single tools that we were seeing, right? Now, let me just come up here. Okay, when I talk about multi-tools, let me just put it here. So when I'm talking about multi-tools, just a minute. When I'm talking about multi-tools, let me just help you understand this from here itself. So if you see here, we have a user query. Okay, user is going to ask a question. It is automatically the agent, okay, which is actually deployed on Foundry agent service, should automatically be able to select a tool. It can be a file search tool, it can be a code interpreter tool, and or it can be a function tool that has been written on the client side. I already told you. To give an example, when I ask questions related to some document information that I'm looking for, maybe some coverage rule, exclusion, procedure from my organization, you can say vector store, then I can go ahead with the file search tool. So I'm talking about file search tool, I'm talking about code interpreter, and then I'm talking about function tools. I already told you first function tools. So I'm talking about server side, okay, managed, sandbox, your code client side, and then we have something which we are talking about agent orchestrates tool autonomously. We are talking in this blue box, okay, agent automatically understands. Now, just to keep it simple, the first thing is if you see, we are calling those functions that we wrote on our own. We could have written it here, but we want to call that function again and again. That's the reason we have kept it in utils. Under business function, we have created some function for getting the claims and calculating the fraud. Then I'm talking about prompt agent definition, file search tool, code interpreter tool. It also requires code interpreter container auto to run the CSV file within a container using Python environment. So we have everything in place. I'm calling it out everything. I have selected the correct environment. Now, if I scroll down here, this is how we are preparing the information. We are uploading a file directly in the agent. Again, if we wanted to be very honest, see, we are talking about Foundry, right? Since we are talking about Foundry, that's the reason I am showing everything from the Foundry, or we would have connected to a database and being able to go ahead and work with the database, but that would have been a separate project, to be very honest. Again, we can do that. But right now, since we are talking about Foundry, I'm talking about uploading a file, okay, and using it for code interpreter using, I hope you remember, using a assistant parameter. Then we have word vector store index. Again, we could have used Azure AI search. We are using file search, which is a managed database, vector database within the Foundry. I already told. Then we are writing our own function, and we are going to call that function somehow using the function scheme. Now, if I go down, we are going to use a list, and we are going to pass all those three things together. We are going to pass code interpreter, file search, as well as our custom function together. This is what we are going to go ahead and do. Okay. In this thing, the first thing, if you remember, we are creating a file. If you remember, we are trying to upload a file using this variable, which is going to point towards our data folder to find the file. And we will print the ID because we would require the file ID to be passed, right? And then if you can see, we are passing the file ID here itself. Okay, so whatever file we have uploaded, if you can see, we are creating a vector store using a managed vector store, not an AI search. And here, if you can see, we are saying upload that file to the agent so that agent can use it. Okay, this is what we are saying. Sorry, this is related to code interpreter, really sorry. And this is related to vector store. Okay, so this is related to vector store. So this is VS ID, which we are passing from here. Sorry, this is separate. We will get a vector store ID, which we are going to pass here. And another ID which we are creating is the CSV for code interpreter. So we have got two IDs, CSV file ID and the vector store ID. We are not using Azure AI Search even now. So now, if you remember, I want to configure the tool. I have native tool as well as I have some custom tool. Native tool is file search, code interpreter, custom tool. I have get claim status and calculate fraud risk, which are part of my client side execution that I'm going to perform. Right now, if I come up here, this is again very important thing. See, again, to be very honest, you should and I should appreciate the power of AI. Okay, why I'm saying appreciating the power of AI? Because if I take it, if I take myself 6 months back, okay, to be able to do this kind of a scenario based on my knowledge would have required me a lot of time. I can tell you a lot of time to create this kind of project just for the learning purpose also, even if you consider it for the learning purpose. But right now you can see exclusive information with respect to tool selection. It's clearly saying the agent automatically detects which tools to use based on the query. It can even chain multiple tools in a single response. Okay, like code interpreter to find this and get claim status for the details if that is the thing that is required to be done. Now, in that case, what we are doing, this is very important. I'll show you this aspect first. If you see, we are creating a list of information. So if you see, we have, if you know Python, we know that if this is one, I'm going to say this is one, comma two. And then I have another list which is of the same dimension. And this is having a value of 3. So can I have a list called as 1, 2, 3? Okay. Another thing that we need to know that within the list, we can have dictionary. So we can have a key value pair within the list. I'll put it this way. Within the list, we can have key value pair. Okay. So I can have key and a value. Then I can have another key and a value. That is absolutely possible. Okay, remember that. So what I'm trying to say, the first one, if you see this function schema is having two functions that are defined. Code interpreter itself is a list. Okay. And file search itself is a, you can say is a list. If I show you here, if I scroll up a little bit, here you can see this is the reason when we were doing function schema earlier also, we were creating a function map, which is actually a dictionary. Because when we want to pass it together, we need to pass it as a list, and a list can contain a dictionary. A list can contain a dictionary. That's the reason we are first creating a dictionary, wherein we are saying key and this is the value. Then we are saying key and this is the value. Then we are saying this value is going to come, this key is going to go ahead and give the value here. Okay. What is the value? This is the description. A parameter, this is where we are specifying the property, everything. And this is the required information to call this tool. It will look for the intent of claim ID. Similarly, to be able to calculate fraud risk, it will for incident type, claim amount, and days since policy start. These three are important information. If your input is not having this, it will ask, okay, this information to the tool, so to the agent, to give it to the user so that it can be triggered if it is required to be triggered compulsorily, to be very honest. So just to keep it simple, this is one JSON. This is another JSON, if you can see, and both are part of this list, which we are going to go ahead and connect it within this function. Okay. So I have got a function map wherein I have got two functions, get claim status and calculate fraud risk. Then I have got a code interpreter, which we know is going to use the ID and code interpreter container auto to run this file within that sandbox environment. Then we have got file search tool, wherein you can see we are adding them. Now we are adding everything as a list, and you can see this is what we are passing. Second thing we are passing this, and third we are passing this. And once I print this out, you will be able to see that we have got all the tools defined. One is native side and two are custom. If I scroll down a little bit here, okay, this is where we are defining our, what you can say, definition of the agent. So we are saying create an agent, smart claims unified. Then we are saying from agent definition, we are going to use this class. You're calling the model and see the instruction very clearly defined. You are again, this is again up to you based on your task. You are a smart claims and AI insurance claims agent. Three tools, one, two, three. You can see file search, code interpreter, functions, get claim status ID, calculate. We are specifying everything. Pick the right tool. You may chain multiple tools if required. Okay, and then we are saying pass all the tools together. Rather than defining it here, we could have directly taken this list and passed it there. That would have been okay. We could have created a list and directly passed the list here also, but right now we are passing the variable. If I run this, you will be able to see that we are able to load the agent with all the tools that we wanted. Okay. Now, the scenarios that we are going to test is first we will check for claims lookup, then we'll check for policy scenarios question, data analytics, fraud assessment, and finally we want to have a multi-tool scenario. Okay, and everything is part of a single, you can say, chain right now. Let us look into this. So right now I'm asking what is the claim of this. If I run this, hopefully, can you see which tool is getting called? I hope you can see. Is that okay? Everyone? Now let me just say, what is the status of claim overall? I'm just going to make change. Let us just play with it and see what it is going to go ahead and do. If you see now which tool is being called, it should be data analysis tool, right? I hope that's okay. All right. Now let us look into another. I'll show you one by one. Okay. Let us just keep it simple. File search I'm talking. See, does our policy cover ride sharing incident? I have not specified anything apart from the tools that are available. Okay. So the moment I run this, it is saying your policy does not cover ride sharing incident. So let us just check if this is saying absolutely correct or not. So let us just open this document. Where was that document? Data. Do we have anything related to ride sharing? No, we do not have anything related to ride sharing. Okay. Let me just say anything related to fraud policy. Let me just ask something else. Let me just check. File search tool is expected to revert a response from this. Yeah, see, it's coming. Is that okay? I hope you can see 1 lakh to some 5 lakh dollars. Let me just put it now. Let us just go ahead. Code interpreter. How many claims are under review? Just put it this way. Simple. And see the tool. And then we will see a complex query. We can write something similar to that. And this is what is coming from the document. Okay, it's doing some calculation at the back, and you can ask it to do a lot of calculation and should be able to do. Okay, any complex calculation you want to do, you can do. Maybe there are multiple sheets and you want to go ahead and do some write some query on top of it. It can do that. Execute the query also. Okay, now if you can see new fire damage claim. Okay, so there is a question. New fire damage claim, this West Region 60-day policy fraud risk, something. Okay, this is related to calculate fraud risk. So we are specifying all the important information. See, the moment I specified, so this can be something you can say that for this kind of a thing, we can have a inbox wherein you can see a toolbox where we can ask it to provide the user all the input. Now let us just see which type incident has the highest risk. What does our policy say about this? So highest average claim amount we are asking, what does our policy say about that type? Let us just try this out. So just to keep it simple, we are able to make sense how it is able to go ahead and call multiple things. It's doing some calculation and it is looking for exclusion from the document itself. And if we want the citation, which can be very good, again, we can use the variable to get the citation. That is also possible. Now, finally, if I want to delete, though it is not showing up, but it is getting created at the back end, I can clean up the response. Let me go through one more thing. Oh, you can go through. I'll just show you what is there. This is really important because I was going through it and I found a lot of information that can be understood. Okay, I'll just put it this way. First of all, we are talking about observability and why does it matter for AI agent before we go ahead and look into the last part. So when we talk about traditional APIs, okay, we do not have LLMs there, right? Now, when we are talking about AI agents, they are non-deterministic and multi-step. A single user query can trigger multiple LLM calls. It can execute multiple tools or functions, file search, code interpreter, web search, custom function. It can also have conversational state that can be a part of it. Okay. So without observability, you will be more of a blind. Just to keep it simple, I'm asking a question. Why was the response slow? Without observability, it is not going to tell me why was the response slow from the server. With observability, if I have an observability, we can get this information that maybe code interpreter took time. Similarly, I am saying how much are we spending using the agent? We do not know this, right? Here with observability, we can find what is the cost. Is the agent hallucinating? Without observability, we will get an output that users are complaining. That's the reason we are asking this question. Okay. And the moment agent is hallucinating, basically user will complain, but we want to know grounding source dropped. Okay. At this, maybe the grounding score dropped. Okay. There was some score based on which you are seeing how much grounded response is it getting. We were able to get this information at a specific time. Which tool fails most? Maybe I want to know the information. Again, with observability, we can get all this information. Okay. So if you want to have complete observability, you can make use of Foundry observability scenario. The thing is, just to keep it simple, if you want to use this, the first thing is you need to have Azure application inside. Okay. Or you can even explore all the telemetry information directly using Open Telemetry SDK, which connects to Azure Foundry, Microsoft Foundry. That is also one thing. So you can go for application insight or you can go for telemetry. I have got this code wherein you can see. So suppose you have application insight, it can trace three things from your Foundry. It can trace the entire span of your work from the moment the agent was being provided with a question till the time the agent responded back. So you can get end-to-end trace, which is called as spans. You can get metrics. Metrics means input, output, all the information, counters you want to get, you can get that. You can get even logs, okay, that are going to generate in a structured way. Apart from using application insight, we can even trace this via OpenTelemetry SDK, connecting it to Foundry. Tracer provider class, meter provider class, and logger provider class from OpenTelemetry will be able to help you trace this. It will help you get the information of the agent call. And when we talk about metrics, we are talking about token count, latency, other information. Okay, like just to show you traces, when we say we are talking about end-to-end flow request, the moment the agent is being called to execution of tool. When we talk about metrics, we are talking about tokens used, input token, output token, completion token, latency, if there was any, active sessions that are right now that are running, people who are consuming agents, how many active sessions are there, all those metrics you can get. Logs basically means if there is any error, warning, decision made by the agent, you can get all those informations within the log. Okay. Now, if you see, we can set up two things. We can set up a production wherein we can configure Azure Monitor, which is going to send the information to application insight, or you can use a local development environment also to be able to get this information. If I run this, I'll just run it in front of you, the entire thing, just to showcase. So the first thing is I am using OpenTelemetry, okay, to be able to get this information. So I'm using OpenTelemetry class, okay. That is what I'm doing. If I go down here, you can even configure, if you can see, I'm using tracer provider, meter provider, if you can see, and I'm able to use those metrics that are part of tracer provider, meter provider. At a high level, if I go down and just show you what you will be able to get, okay, the moment, and these are some of the meters that are there. create counter, create histogram, okay, create up down meter, get a active agent count. If there is any you want to get, you can get. So this is what you can do. The ultimate thing is you will be able to get the entire information, version, model, input, output, whatever is there, event, metrics, span, you will be able to get this kind of an information when you're going to see. Okay. Now, if I go down, you can see it in the application inside. You can see it here also. If I can just show it to you, okay, this is where I'm asking a question. So this is the model, and here I'm testing some query. Here I'm testing some query. If you can see, I'm testing some query, and I'm trying to enumerate the results that are coming out of this query. Okay. So here, if you can see, I want to enumerate all the results. Observe call I'm using, and I'm pending all the observe call here. So if I come up here, let me just showcase, and let me just go through scrollable element to show you. So if I come up here, you will be able to see the entire aspect. Okay, so what is the deductible for auto collision claim? This is where the information we can see. So we are having a trace ID, a span ID. We can see the attributes, the agent name, version, model, input length, output token, everything we can see it here itself. We can see the event. This was the event wherein the input went. The agent call got completed within this much duration. Was there any external link that was being shared? You can see. Okay, what are the attributes? How was it covered using open telemetry? You can see that information, and here you can see all the information. This is the response. This is the duration that it took. This is the token. This is the trace ID. Similarly, you are able to get that information for query 2 also, and you will be able to get the information for query 3 also. So if you can see, you can get an end-to-end tracing of what is happening, and then you can have a dashboard on top of it, making use of Azure Monitor. You can get that information. I hope this makes sense what I'm trying to say. So you can have everything. Okay. If I run this aspect, I think I've already executed this. So this is executed. Let me just showcase. And if I go to this, you can get this kind of a dashboard. I hope you can see. So for the questions that we had, we are able to see the latency. We have set the benchmark, and we can see how many calls are above. If you see this one, token usage, input and output token, you can see. If you see cumulative cost after each token consumption, you can see over the agent when the agent is asking the question. Is that okay? And this has been created from the telemetry data that we were able to see. And then we are using a matplotlib to be able to plot that information directly here. I'll put it simple. Whenever you run something, you can configure an application inside. And on the application inside, you can write your own query called as KQL. And there are similar tools, which is called as push-to query language. Okay. Via that, you can actually go ahead and get all, like how you write a query in SQL database. You can even write a query using push-to query language, which will give you the information in a proper tabular format. Okay. Which you can go ahead and save it if you want. Save it as a file. And then go ahead and run a Python analysis tool on top of it. You're getting my point? To be able to get all those information that I'm talking about. So though it is generic in many sense, but what I'm saying, this is more of information that is being fetched. But after fetching the information, if you go down here, okay, after the fetching the information, if you see, I'm writing some plots. Can you see? I hope you can see I'm using plots, matplotlib and everything I'm using. And I'm able to get this information. This is the observability dashboard that you are able to see. So basically, whatever output that I got from the observability, I'm passing it, and then I'm able to create a configure or dashboard on top of it. This is generic. You can use all those, you can say, class and methods to be able to get or fetch the information. There are 3 levels at which you will get the information. Do remember traces, metrics, and logs. So this will be the entire span of your agent working. This will be the metrics that will be outputted, and this will be logs that will be generated based on errors and some information that is being written, or maybe the agent, what you can say, how the agent perceives the information, things, all those information you will be able to see under the events that are happening at the back end. Okay. So what we are talking about right now is, suppose you have built a solution, okay, wherein you find that you are able to go ahead and maybe build a notebook, okay? And from that notebook, you want to fetch some code, right? So just to keep it simple, right now, we have an Azure app service, okay, wherein we are going, like, we have an index page that will be created, okay? That index page allows you to upload a file. It has 4 tabs, okay? It will also give you an option to visualize the chart using chart.js. It also has quick action buttons. Again, this is all configured using AI, to be very honest, based on the notebook that were being created. Like, to be very honest, I do know about Fast API. I do know about deploying that application onto Azure App Service. So right now, this is the application, and there are multiple APIs that we have in place. One of the API is related to uploads. Another API is to chat. Another API is for policy QA. Another API is for analytics. Then there is for fraud risk. Then there is for claim lookup. You can consider all those things because you know that we have something called as AI search. So what is basically happening? This there is one file main.py. Actually, what has happened? We have created one Python file which has function to upload, to do a chat, to get analytics. If you remember that, what you call analytics, when we are talking about code interpreter. We are talking about creating an agent, then doing a fraud risk, saving the information. So these are some of the functions. Based on this function, okay, there is one API that has multiple APIs that has been created using something called as Fast API. Okay. Again, you can look into the code, okay, using something called as Fast API. This is going to be deployed directly on Azure. So whatever you have here, this will be deployed on Azure, okay, and your index page is going to actually connect to this Fast API application. So to keep it simple, your index page is actually going to connect to this Fast API application, okay, that is having multiple APIs, okay. To run this on Azure, we need to have some script working, and I've also created some startup script that is required to run this Fast API as a web application on Azure App Service, okay. And we need to configure because we are going to connect to the project, the model, and we need to do a default client credential. Again, rather than doing a default credential, we can have authentication also, Azure login authentication. For that, we need to have Entra ID authentication enabled. Right now, it is via default Azure credential. So anyone can use it. And to do this, if you see at the backend, we are using this aspect. So just to keep it simple, to run this Python script, we are making use of this Foundry, right? Okay. What is basically happening from this Python script to be able to connect it to the index page, we are creating APIs. And this API is having a conversation with those Python script. That Python script is directly connected to the Foundry. And then we are able to configure it on Azure using a startup script. And we have some environment configuration that is already available in the Azure. So if I come up here, okay, so what I have done, rather than creating an app service, I have created a container app, okay, which is going to be a container. If I hope I have not deleted. Really sorry if that has happened. So let me just come up here and I can just show it to you from here itself. So what I'm talking about is you will have an index page. You will have a backend API. That backend API is going to call your, you can say your agent service that is actually residing in your Foundry. Okay. This is what we have. And these are some of the endpoints that are created. Whatever you can see here, everything, main.py that I told, this is the Fast API application. This is your Python script, okay, on top of which APIs are being created. This is where you have the index page. I also have the requirement file because I want to run it. I want to run it as a, you can say I want to run it, right, as a application on Azure, right? So I've got the requirement file. To run this, I have got a startup script, and this is the environment variable. So if I open this, okay, let me just close everything here. Close this. Let me keep open this. If I show you here, we have got templates. Okay, and here I have got agent service. I've also added observability, okay, to get end-to-end observations also directly in the Foundry. Okay, and I have got main.py. This is my Fast API. If I go here, if you are aware about Fast API, you know that to create a Fast API application, you need to specify this. And this is the, you can say this is the title. and I'm using a template to be able to create this. If you go here you can see there are multiple APIs. One is get API. If I go down here, you can see a post API. Okay, here I have a chat, I have policy QA, I have analytics, which is actually going to go ahead and call the functions. Okay, it is going to go ahead and call the function to be able to give me a response. Okay, so this is something that we have. I have got this code. This is the entire code written using that aspect only. And this is the index page. And this entire application, if I can just show it to you via this, if I can just open this notebook, this one. If I can just show you the entire application, if you want to run, everything has been mentioned here itself. What do you need to do? You need to go ahead and have an env file first of all created. You're not going to put the env file here. You're going to directly add this information in your application. So let me just showcase this thing to you. If I can just show you, this is my container application. Let me open this container application. Let me close the entire thing. This is the same one. 1 second. So I'm opening this container application. Within this container application, if I go to settings or if I go to network, something it should be there, right? I can see security, monitoring. I have got this. If I open this container, I should be able to see this application that is running as a container right now. And if I come up here, this is my environment. Okay, if I go to the settings, here also, this is the environment that we are using to run this. And this is the application that is running on a container app, Azure Container App, in West US 3 region. To run this, everything has been mentioned here itself, how to run it. If you want to run this application locally, you can even run it locally. That is also possible. You can just copy this and you need to open this directly in your project root directory. So this is my project root directory. I can go to the terminal. I can just go to project root directory. This is my project root directory. Okay. And 1 second, I think I made a mistake. Okay. So if you want to run it locally, you can run it locally also. If you want to see all the APIs, you can go for docs and you can see these are the APIs that I'm talking about. So this is a fast API application running locally. That same application has been configured to run on the Azure also using Azure App Service, actually container service. And let me just put it this way. If you want to run it locally, this is how you can run it locally. And if you want to deploy it on Azure App, specified all the entire steps, you need to create a resource group. You can do it yourself. You can create a web app service plan. Then you can create a resource group. Then you can create an app service plan. And then you can deploy it as an app service. If you want to deploy, you can go ahead and deploy this as an app service.
And that's a wrap on one of the most complete Azure AI Foundry projects you'll ever build as a hands-on exercise. So if you followed along till the end, you now have a production-ready AI system sitting on your machine. And more importantly, on your resume. Most developers haven't built this. That's your edge. So if you want to go deeper, we have put together a complete project guide that walks you through every step, every concept, and every line of code that we did in this video. The link is right there in the description. Go and grab it. Also, if this video helped you, drop a like. It genuinely helps this content reach more developers and engineers looking for exactly this. And also subscribe if you want more real hands-on AI projects like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.